you're only talking via email, there are probably some things being left on the table.
Do you have a brilliant product idea but don't know where to start to get it made? Or are you looking to level up your product but afraid to take it overseas?
If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Erin, and we are
The Sourcing Gals,
your trusted guides to everything you need to know about sourcing, manufacturing, and scaling your product overseas. Whether you are just starting out or you've been making your own product for a while, we are here to help women source products overseas without the overwhelm.
In each episode, we'll share insider tips, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories to help you source more effectively, save time, and boost your profits. Duh! We know how hard it can be to juggle the ins and outs of product development, but don't worry, we've got your back.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into how you can grow your business,
make more money,
and turn your products into profit. Welcome to
The Sourcing Gals. Now let's get started. High five.
Hi. If you're building a product-based business and finding yourself second-guessing decisions or wishing you had someone to gut check, we want you to know you don't have to do this alone.
On January 1st, we're opening the Sourcing Gals Founder Circle, our private community for product-based founders.
Inside, you'll get monthly Q&A calls with us, access to our templates, scripts, and tools, and most importantly, a community of founders building right alongside you.
It's only $27 a month, or for a limited time, $247 for the year. That's 3 months free. You can find all the details in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to another episode of
The Sourcing Gals.
I am excited about today, but also a little bit nervous. As a millennial, I think that there's something we're going to talk about that will give a lot of people the hibbity-jibbities.
Oh my God, I love that. Well, this is like my preference.
Right. This is, you shine here. But we're going to talk about when to pick up the phone when speaking with your manufacturers and how that can benefit your overall strategy when it comes to not only the product, but your price, your long-term relationship, and executing your goals through some voice-to-voice contact.
Yeah, because I do believe if you're only talking via email, there are probably some things being left on the table, to be honest. But it's when, right? It's when to do it,
Right.
at the right time, when the right opportunity or challenge comes along, so that communication is not taken for granted, but also becomes like a little bit of a turning up of the dial.
Sure, because we both know, we talked about this in our communication episode a couple weeks ago, that written communication is extremely efficient, but voice communication builds trust. It builds longevity. It builds community that you are trying to achieve with your partners.
Yeah. And, emails can be very transactional, where calls are relational. Like that's when I'm getting on a phone call with my factory. I'm trying to leverage or build my relationship further to get me somewhere that I need to go, to be fair, right? It's not just to like go and shoot the shit. Like, I mean, you can do that. And some vendors I might do that with, but usually when I'm taking time out of my day and their day, it's because I'm trying to build on an existing relationship or create a stronger one that's going to allow us to get through this challenge or talk about a really exciting opportunity. And I was thinking about this before we recorded, like really good examples of when I've recently picked up the phone in the last like year. Because it's not every day by any means.
No, it's not. And it's something that is always, it's one of your preferences. It's usually at the bottom of the list for me in terms of preference. And it's mostly because I don't think as quickly on my feet. I need to outline something. I need to look at it. I need to double check it and edit it a little bit and then go back and edit it again. But when it comes down to it, even the best crafted email, it doesn't take into account tone. It doesn't take into account, any like nuance or some back and forth understanding that you can certainly achieve with a phone call.
Yeah. So most recently I was on a call with the factory because we're working with a new client who is a startup, but the growth plan is there. Sure. The growth plan is there for much bigger box retail, but we need their help and partnership to get through this trial period. And so for my vendor, I could, yes, put that in an email, and I have before, but for this, there were just some nuances that I really needed to make sure that he was okay with. Before I just reach out to his team, before I just send the email inquiry, I wanted to make sure that he was aligned with where I was trying to get to, and that I knew that there was going to be some lost margin on both of our ends, but we had a much bigger goal in sight. So that to me was something that I have an existing relationship with this factory, and it was much easier to have a 10-minute phone call and really get alignment and talk about it versus me trying to put that all in an email and really get my point across.
So aligning on strategy.
Yes, it was definitely like a strategy, big picture conversation.
And like discussion. If you think about trading information versus having a discussion,
Yep.
when you're going into discussion mode, that's kind of the first indicator that this might be better on a phone call.
Yeah. And then another recent conversation I had was with my fabric mill. And ironically enough, I had never had a call with my fabric mill for Piper and Mint. And we were a year and a half in. Like, I have a woman, call her a broker in the middle that kind of relays information for me. But I'm at some crossroads with that business where I needed more information than what I was able to get just with a transactional email. I had to go deeper and understand, but could we do this? Or, but if we do this, what does this mean? Like, there was a lot of dot connecting that was getting really lost in and my mill, to be honest, spoke very fluent English. So it wasn't a translation thing. It was more, I wanted to get deeper and deeper and deeper in the conversation, and the back and forth via email wasn't getting me there. So we ended up having almost an hour and a half conversation. And let me tell you, I walked away with like, oh, holy shit. I learned things about my fabric that I had no idea. And I've asked him for a lot of information about my fabric. I learned technical information that is now going to allow me to actually have a call with a patent attorney and talk about patenting my fabric, which I've talked locally to many people here. I've talked to 3 different patent attorneys, and they've all been like, I don't know. Well, guess what? My mill said that someone else is patenting fabric that he's made, and it's similar to mine, not the same, but similar. And he's like, so it is possible. So those things, like, I wasn't getting out of an email from him.
Sure.
So that hour and a half, which again, my 9 p.m., I inconvenience myself, his 9 a.m. because they're in China, was like, I have a whole new strategy for my business now going forward.
That's phenomenal. And I think that that happens because when and I mentioned this a little bit earlier with, I like to be prescriptive. I like to see what I want to say, review it, and send it. But when we aren't that way, when we are just talking off the cuff, we might remember things we didn't think about, something maybe your fabric mill said, prompted a response in you,
100%.
prompted a response in him. So that kind of off the cuff, back and forth is what builds and what extracts information that you're not getting via email.
It was a full brainstorm session, basically, that would not have been able to have occurred in an email back and forth. It just wouldn't. It was too big of a concept with too much complexity to talk about. It wasn't just your basic manufacturing back and forth. So I think those are another example of when that phone call can kind of take you 20 steps ahead.
Right. So we talked nuance, but you also mentioned complexity.
Yes.
So when complexity increases in a project, that might be the time to pick up a phone. And I will say this too, that if it's very complex, a phone call won't be the only thing you need, but it will support the email. So you can send an email as a pre-read,
Yep.
and then you can go through and kind of explain your thought process, explain, for me, it's largely order of operations. I'm like, if it's a very complex product, I think, okay, we can start this way, we can go into this, and a factory might flip it. So you can either start with a pre-read email, give them a call, or opposite, give them a call, kind of talk through some strategy, kind of do some brainstorming, and then follow up with an email that outlines what you spoke about so that everybody's clear. And we do recommend that too. Like, if you are getting on the phone, if you are speaking about something, do follow up with an email to make sure that what was said doesn't get lost and you have some paper trail of what your discussion entailed.
And for some factories, you're going to have to ask if they're okay with a phone call. You know, some are going to be more open to it than others, depending on how fluent they are, how comfortable they are. So we're not saying that this is an every day, every week, even an every month occurrence. I have some factories that I've never spoken to on the phone, by the way. So I think these are for ones where you're really trying to build a different type of relationship where you see them as a business partner. So I think you have to also be discerning on that. We're not saying pick up the phone for every vendor when you're going to go buy like 500 units of a tote bag. No, you don't need to talk to that person. But if you want someone to play a bigger role in your business, if you want them to become a strategic piece and component, okay, those are the times where you can think and then ask, hey, would it be possible to get on a call with you sometime? I'd love to cast my vision. I'd love to talk through this. The other thing I was thinking about overseas wise during the recent tariff challenges, that was a time when I picked up the phone and called my factory. We were doing some very large volume coming out of that factory. And we obviously had customers that were freaking out and also asking us, meaning the manufacturer, asking us for cost concessions. And for me to just send in an email, oh, by the way, I need you to shave off, 25, 30, 50 cents because of this new tariff law on a 50,000 unit order. Like, maybe not the best way to do that.
Might not land.
So instead, we chatted him and said, hey, can we connect tonight? I want to talk to you about what my customer's asking. Let's see if we can come to something that works for both of us. And so that phone call, which again, I think was 15, 20 minutes, we worked through it on the phone with the head, right? It's not my day-to-day sales manager. This was the head of the factory and I talking to say, okay, what can we absorb? I think we could absorb this if you can take this and can you help bring this in? So we had that, again, strategy conversation. And by the end of it, we had fully negotiated a couple $100,000 order and how they were going to help absorb. And we were able to go back to the customer the next day with an answer.
And think about if you were to do that same interaction back and forth via email, it would have taken 14 days.
Yeah, the tariff might have the duty probably would have changed. The tariff would have changed like 10 times over, and it probably did. But it set a baseline too for the conversation because this wasn't the only customer that came back asking for cost concessions.
Of course,
we need you to hold our costs, right? So at least I had alignment with the factory owner to say, okay, here's what we can do. We can absorb half of it if you absorb half, and then are there any other tweaks that can be made on your end to help support? They discounted some future orders for us. Like we were really talking some big picture strategies because we had hundreds of thousands of dollars being pushed out of this factory at the time that were getting affected majorly by the tariffs.
And I think another thing that's really important about these phone calls and what they can do for you is that when it's a discussion, whether it be tariffs or whether it be like a QA issue.
Oh, yes.
When it's a discussion where it's a little bit sensitive and there's some disappointment or there's some lack of someone meeting an expectation, talking to someone on the phone and using your tone is very helpful. Because if I type out an email and I'm like, this is wrong, this is not right, how can we fix? It might come across like, wow, she is being too aggressive. But if I'm on the phone with someone, usually they hear my voice and I'm able to say, look, we need to come to an agreement. This isn't what we discussed. I am disappointed, but I know that we can work together to make it right. That's a different interaction than an email, especially when you're discussing a sensitive issue, disappointments, or lack of expectations.
I think another example of when you would pick up the phone is, let's say you've had that back and forth for days, maybe even you're going on a week and a half, and they're just not picking up what you're putting down, or vice versa, right? Or they're telling you something and you're like, I do not understand what they are saying. That might be a great reason to say, hey, can I grab 5-10 minutes with you so we can talk through this? Like if there is this back and forth and there's a lack of understanding on either end and you've wasted time, and we know every day matters in production, every day matters in manufacturing. So time lost is important. That can cost you money and a lot of money. And so factories want to move at a certain pace to keep efficient and keep their process going along. So I would say if you're having a lot of back and forth and it just doesn't seem to be getting to a resolve, that would be another time where you can pose a phone call.
And you've talked about pictures and voice memos on WeChat or on WhatsApp before, but I have a particular vendor, factory owner who I talk to a lot, but she'll just WeChat me, like it's like FaceTime, and turn her camera around, show me what she's working on, point to it and be like, this part isn't folding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that abrupt or something more in depth than that, most likely. But it really helps me understand right away what she means. And then I'll say something to the effect of, okay, let's fold it this other way, or let's do it differently. And we're like, okay, problem solved, done.
What if your sourcing agent lived in your browser? Meet Axio, Alibaba's AI-powered sourcing engine that understands what you need, matches you with pre-vetted suppliers, analyzes trends, and even helps with compliance. Want to test for a special certification or create custom specs? Axio handles that as well. As the sourcing gals, we've used it to cut sourcing time from weeks to minutes. And with our code, The Sourcing Gals, you get 10% off your monthly subscription. If you're launching or scaling a product-based business, this tool changes the game. Try Axio with our code today. Link is in the show notes.
And you know what? That made me think of another thing. We're talking about picking up the phone. I also think that a WeChat or WhatsApp same time response can be really effective. So what I mean by that is instead of saying, hey, can you hop on a call? Hey, can we talk on WhatsApp? Can we talk on WeChat at 9:00 tonight? And basically it's like you're texting a friend. So again, if you think about an overseas email, you send it once, it goes off, you don't get a reply till the next day. You can now get on WeChat, WhatsApp, and just text each other back 25, 30, 40 times, times within a 5, 10, 15-minute period. So I also want to say that we're talking about phone call because I do think it's relational driven. I think it is important to do, but there are probably some nuances, even when maybe you're having a misunderstanding back and forth. Maybe you're getting closer to the answer, but not fully there. A quick text chain back and forth where you're immediately getting back to one another could easily resolve the issue in, again, 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Especially if maybe the English speaking abilities of whoever you're trying to reach aren't that of a phone call.
Yeah.
Text works as well.
Because they're probably, to be honest, a lot of factories, they're going to take your email in English and put it into their own version of like a translator chat AI.
Yes.
To translate to their language. And then they're going to reply in their language and have it go back to you. So just know that there are definitely tools that some factories are using that are not fully fluent in English. So that's, again, where that phone call might be like, I'm not really comfortable with that, but they might have other tools and resources they can use where a texting back and forth could be really efficient.
I think one of the very big instances in which I tend to have phone conversations is about planning larger strategy timelines or capacities, trying to understand, okay, if we go into sampling tomorrow, what does that look like for you guys? Are there people in front of me? We had this issue with one of my clients last week where Chinese New Year's coming up and we have some labels we're trying to print and the labels are approved. Like, what's going on? And they're like, well, you're like 17th in line. I'm like, got it. Understand. Can I pay 2 cents more to be first in line? They're like, sure. Great.
Yes.
Fabulous. Let's do it. That was figured out in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's important to know when that next step is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And when timelines are ticking, when clocks are kind of hitting, when you're getting close to sounding the alarm because you're close to when goods should be shipping, or again, your milestones are not being met. Like, those are all the times when I think escalating the communication, the speed at which you're talking, that's what we're talking about here.
And we talked about timelines, pricing, capacities, patent things, like all of these very detail-oriented things. It is important, I mentioned it too, to keep a paper trail.
Yeah.
If you
100%.
negotiate a price via a phone call, follow up in an email, get the sign off, because it's very easy to forget what you spoke about. And I will also say, Jackie and I have been using this a lot recently. If you do a Zoom call or you do a Google Hangout or something like that, you record it.
Yeah.
Record it so that you can download the transcript and you can throw that bad boy in AI and get an outline of your call. It just makes life so much easier, because how many times have we had a personal interaction and then gone back and been like, oh, what did we say? What did we discuss? Or you've gone back and said, you told me you would give me 5 cents off. And then they're like, I was telling you I'd give you 5 cents off on one order. Or, you know what I mean? You always kind of do have to back up anything that requires an agreement, back it up with a paper trail.
So let's talk about a few things to prepare for a productive call. We talked a lot about why you have the call. So things that you should come prepared for before you have that call. An agenda, even if it's really short. It's really understanding what is the purpose of your call and what points do you want to make sure you make? Because we all know with phone calls with friends, you might go in thinking one thing and then it's like squirrel. And the next thing you know, you're talking about who knows what. So it's like making sure you have a hit list of like at the end of the day, when I hang up the phone, I need to make sure I've at least touched on these 3 points.
I have a friend who is in project management, and if someone does not have an agenda for a call, he declines it. He'll be like, sorry, no, you're not prepared. And
I mean, it's kind of true.
I kind of love it.
It's kind of true. Like you're respecting their time, because you've done your work. And with that preparation, one other thing is if you are talking about a quality issue, a manufacturing problem, something tactical, share the visuals ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Give them time to prepare. Let them know what you are going to talk about, right? We don't want to set factories up to feel anxious about having a phone call. It's like, hey, I would love to connect because I want to talk about XYZ. Here's the issue I'm having. I'm just not understanding, or I think I'm not being clear in my communication. Do you right? Giving them some
like
warning.
A good rule of thumb just in life.
Yes.
I, even as a manager, as a leader at some of the companies, if I had to have a meeting with someone on my team, I wouldn't just be like, need to meet with you 4 p.m. Friday. Like, that's so rude. I would say, hey, we're going to talk about this strategy plan. Here's a pre-read. Talk to you then. It really helps people to come prepared.
Yep.
Nobody's feeling ambushed.
Yeah, 100%. And when you have that agenda pulled together, again, what is your outcome that you're hoping for?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of that conversation, you've talked through your bullet points. Did you actually get to the outcome that you need? Did you get clarity? Did you get strategy alignment? Did you get quality issues resolved and you figured out a process for future, right? What is it you're actually trying to achieve? And make sure ideally that you're leaving that call, if not with those answers, at least with next steps.
Sure. The worst thing is getting on a call, spending the time, going through a lot of content, and then never really alleviating the issue at hand.
Correct. So let's talk about some mistakes that founders can make. Are you going to say that? Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say that from the preparation for the call, that's what to do. But there are also things maybe you shouldn't do, maybe some mistakes that you should try to avoid when hopping on the phone call with a vendor. One is just talking too much, a lot of filler, a lot of kind of stream of consciousness, especially when you're talking with someone who maybe English isn't their first language. It can throw you off course. You said squirrel earlier. It can really throw you off course, and then just kind of throw off balance the purpose of your call.
Yeah, and that's a great call out. The other one is make sure you're asking for the factory's perspective, right? You might come in with this agenda kind of hot and like very focused, but make sure you're allowing space for them to come back to you with solutions, come back to you with their POV. Like it really, we talk about a lot of, this is a partnership, right? Mm-hmm. This is a partnership with your factory. You're building a relationship that goes 2 ways. So make sure you're giving space and time for them to come and bring their thoughts.
So you're not just talking at them.
Correct.
I will tell a story. Do you remember being at Abercrombie and walking down the aisles of desks, and there would be a group of people around a speakerphone just yelling into the phone?
Oh, yes.
At the factory.
Oh, yeah.
And I would walk by those people and be like, how are you going to get what you want out of that? That seems so counterproductive to me. Mm-hmm. There would always be people screaming into the phone. And that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, no, that's true story.
But we're saying don't do that. We're saying there are sensitive topics. We get it. Like you might be coming in hot, but conversation, back and forth. Ask for their feedback. Don't talk at them.
And I think also you'll need to navigate if the answer you're trying to achieve is actually possible to get while on that call. And I'm talking about like pressure, like whether it's sales pressure or getting that immediate answer. And if they're like, I need some time, like give them some grace as well to go through with that. So I think just making sure that there are certain situations where some pressure might be needed. If something is really not getting done and maybe there was a quality issue and maybe there have been some challenges, right? It is okay to come with that, but know that you might not always get the exact answer that you want or need right on that call, because production is a very complicated process. So one change might affect a lot of things downstream. So if they are telling you, we hear you, make sure they understand what you're asking for. And if they need a couple days, if they need time to come back, qualify how many days, when will I get an update, right? And follow it up with an email. But just know that you might not get everything you need on that call. They might need time to go and work on their end based on what the conversation is about.
Yeah, or just like understand. Need time for it to sink in a little bit. I've had so many situations, not just with one factory. Lots of situations where there's just been not really an alignment on what we're saying. I can think of one thing off the top of my head where it was like a wash issue for denim. And we wanted it this way. They didn't do it that way. They were saying, we did it right. And I'm like, can you see these things next to each other? They're not the same. They're like, yeah, they're the same. I'm like, they are not the same. They're the same. And I was like, we're not getting anywhere. We weren't getting anywhere. There wasn't a reason for me to keep like badgering the conversation. So I had to take a different tact. I had 2 photos. I put them next to each other. I had arrows. This is different than this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're not getting it, if you're not making progress, shut it down. Try a different avenue.
And I think you mentioned this multiple times, but follow up in writing. We see people, forget to do this, and it is very important. I love the Zoom with the AI notes and making the agenda for you and following, all of it. But let's just make sure you have that written paper trail. Basically, whatever you conversed about should go back in your daily email for the next day. Confirming the conversation, confirming any outstanding things that the factory still owes you. Maybe you owe the factory some information. Like, again, two-way street, but make sure everybody's aligned. And the best way to do that is to recap in an email form.
So I think that we've talked about a lot of reasons why we would talk to someone on the phone that are like tactical, that are problem solving, that are possibly rooted in having an issue.
Yeah.
But I also want to mention that one of the big reasons why I chat with people on the phone too is just to build that relationship, just to touch base, just to let them know how my business is doing, just to let them know where things are going. And those can be kind of quarterly-ish, maybe twice a year. If it's a factory that you work with often and for a long time, I would call and say, how are things with your business? Things are great with my business. Here's what we're looking at for the next 6 months. I'd love to loop you in, appreciate your partnership. That's it. That's all that's necessary. But voice to voice, saying it on the phone, I think it goes so far.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these voice to voice calls, it especially feels less scary when you have met this factory in person. Like a lot of my vendors, I do find at trade shows. So they have met me. And so we've already started to build that in-person relationship. So a phone call makes it that much easier. For someone that you just found on the internet, found through Alibaba or a platform, like it's going to take time. It's going to take time, and it will evolve. If they are a key player for your business, like it will evolve over time.
Absolutely.
So again, these are more conversations to be had with when some bigger problems arise or some bigger strategies are being put in play. This isn't necessarily for any new vendor that you just meet and are just kicking off business with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that all in all, we've talked about a lot here, a lot to digest, but it's about collaboration, not control, not talking at someone, not just throwing a wall of an email and then hoping they get it. And we talked about relationship building.
And when the stakes rise, the communication should too. So really that's what this is about, right? It's when you need to leverage that, leverage it, but also don't abuse it.
Don't abuse it. And I think a lot of the things we talked about here today are common sense.
Yeah.
How to communicate with people in business. But I think that in this day and age, and I opened with this, like as a millennial, this day and age, people would prefer a text. They'd prefer an email. They'd prefer just to not have that face-to-face. Maybe it's uncomfortable at first, but this is your business.
I'd say it's a little more Gen Z than millennial. I feel like millennials still call. No, maybe as an elder millennial, I feel like, my boomer mom, talk about phone calls. That woman is on the phone all day long. So I guess I understand millennial, but I do think us elder millennials, some of us at least, are still phone call people. We've now more voice notes now. This is the new thing.
Yeah. If someone calls me and I don't have like a heads up about it, I'll look at my phone like, oh,
well, it's funny. Okay. That's
a
a fun fact, because yesterday I always text you first, and I was driving and I didn't, and I hit dial and I'm like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable calling you without giving you a heads up. So that is very
When
fair.
was that? I thought
You
I
were
knew
at the
you
grocery
gonna call
store.
me. Oh, I was at the grocery store.
See, and I should have known. I would normally text them like, hey, you free to chat? And you'd be like, no, I'm at the grocery store. I'll call you back in a few. But I was like in my car and I was like, I'm just going to call her. And
well, I
That's so
answered
funny.
because like
I
if it was
know.
just a regular question, I can
know.
answer it.
I know.
But it was about
But-
an Excel chart, so couldn't
really help me.
couldn't recall from the checkout line where my daughter was trying to check out everything, and they kept calling the attendant over, and I was like, gosh, let's get out of here.
Well, anyways, I hope that this brought you some tactical tips and tricks and tools, again, onto how to leverage communication in different ways when speaking with factories and manufacturers, and that you learned something new.
Absolutely.
And before we head out, I want to say, speaking of communication and
Phone calls.
voice, we just held our first live Founder Circle call.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
So good to see all these founders with brilliant product ideas at all different phases of their product journey, mind you, which was really cool because one was helping the other and saying, oh, I've been there. Like, if you need help, let me know, from all different places across the country, and all bringing great questions,
Great questions.
great insights, and all from different backgrounds, which I also love. That
Yes.
all these women have different backgrounds that they're bringing also into the Founder Circle.
And because we were like chit-chatting as we were getting started, we found out that there were connections, like not even 6th degree, like
Yeah.
2nd degree connections between nearly everybody on the call.
Yeah.
It was just, it felt like such a fun and engaging moment to be with other founders.
Yeah, and I think it reminds me that those, it wasn't in person, but it was live on Zoom. Like, it can be energy giving,
Yes,
right? Like
it totally
energy
was.
giving. And so I feel like the similar thing with phone calls with your factories. Like, a lot of times you can leave those calls hopefully feeling more energized, feeling more connected, right? In this digital world, it's like, how do we connect? How do we keep building the relationship? So I just want to say the Founders Call was amazing. And if you are on your product journey and thinking, could this be for me? Let me tell you, the group is dynamic. Every week we're going in, we're dropping prompts and questions and dialoguing with one another. If people just have general questions, specific questions about their business, Erin and I pop in and we answer it. We have prompts coming out of our podcast that we drop every week. Like, what'd you think about it? What do you wish we went further into that we didn't, right? You have access to us. And then once a month, we do a live hour-long QA call where it's about you. It's about you, your business, where you're at, what you need, and we're there.
If that sounds like magic to you and something that you would benefit from, be sure to jump in before our next call, which is the 4th Thursday in February. It's the 4th Thursday of every month. So regardless of when you're listening to this, head on over to our website, thesourcinggals.com, and you can see the Founder Circle, which will lead you through the process of joining.
If you follow us on Instagram also, it's in our bio, link to join, really easy. So it is an amazing community. We're just getting off the ground started with it. So being a founding member, you're going to have a lot of access to
And
us.
a good deal.
A great deal. So, okay, well, that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on another episode of
The Sourcing Gals.